Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into the legendary world of the Knight Warrior. Ever wondered who the greatest knights in history and legend truly were? Beyond the shining armor and epic tales, these warriors left an indelible mark on the world. Let's journey back in time and meet some of the most formidable knights to ever live. We start in Bohemia with Jan Žižka, a military genius who, even after being blinded, led the Hussite forces to victory after victory. His innovative tactics and sheer willpower made him a legend. Then, journey to the Middle East to meet Saladin's Mamluk knights. These elite cavalrymen from Egypt and Syria were renowned for their incredible discipline, fierce loyalty, and unmatched courage on the battlefield. From Scotland we have the formidable Sir James Douglas, known as the Black Douglas. He was the trusted right-hand man of King Robert the Bruce, and his very name struck fear into the hearts of his enemies. He played a crucial role in Scotland's fight for independence. Crossing over to England, we find a man often called the greatest knight that ever lived, Sir William Marshal. In a career spanning decades, he served 4 English kings and was said to be undefeated in tournaments. His life was a masterclass in chivalry, skill, and political savvy. From France came Hugues de Payan, the visionary founder and first Grand Master of the legendary Knights Templar, an order that would become one of the most powerful in Christendom. Not all knights were famous just for battle. Germany's Ulrich von Liechtenstein was a real-life knight whose adventures and dedication to chivalric ideals were so extraordinary, they inspired poems and stories, even getting a nod in the movie A Knight's Tale. Of course, we can't forget the icons of legend. From the court of King Arthur, we have Sir Gawain, the epitome of loyalty and virtue, forever remembered for his courageous encounter with the mysterious Green Knight. And finally, the most famous of them all, Sir Lancelot du Lac. His unparalleled skill with the sword and lance made him the champion of the Round Table, though his fame is forever tied to his tragic love for Queen Guinevere. From blind commanders to tournament champions, these knights, both real and legendary, define the very essence of courage and honor. Have you ever wondered what it truly meant to be a knight? Was it all shining armor and jousting tournaments? Or was there more to these legendary medieval warriors? Today we're going to journey back in time, beyond the fairy tales, to uncover the real story of the knight. We'll explore their rise from simple horsemen to the icons of an entire age. It all began in the early Middle Ages. Europe was a chaotic place, and kings needed a new kind of soldier, one who could fight on horseback, armored and deadly. This was the birth of the knight. But becoming a knight wasn't easy. It was a long, arduous journey that started in childhood. As a young boy, a future knight would be sent away from his family to serve as a page in a noble Eze castle. Here, he'd learn the basics: etiquette, horse riding, and how to handle a wooden sword. It was a life of discipline and service. If he proved himself worthy, around the age of 14, he would become a squire. A squire was essentially a knight's personal assistant. He cleaned armor, cared for the war horse, and followed his master into the chaos of battle. It was a dangerous apprenticeship, where a single mistake could be fatal. But it was also the ultimate training ground. The squire learned not just how to fight, but what to fight for. This brings us to one of the most famous concepts associated with knights, chivalry. Now, chivalry wasn't just about being polite to ladies, though that was part of it. The code of chivalry was a complex set of ideals that guided a knight's conduct. It demanded loyalty to one's lord, courage in the face of the enemy, and a commitment to protect the weak and defenseless. Of course, not every knight lived up to this code. History is filled with ruthless knights who were more interested in plunder than principle. But the ideal of chivalry was powerful. It shaped culture, inspired poetry, and gave us legendary figures whose stories are still told today. Think of William Marshal, a man who rose from a minor noble family to become one of the most celebrated knights in English history, serving 5 different kings. Or El Cid, the Spanish hero whose battlefield exploits became the stuff of legend. These weren't just characters in a story. They were real men whose valor and skill defined their era. As a squire, you'd witness this firsthand. You'd see the heat of battle, the clash of steel, and the strategies that won or lost a war. You learned to read the battlefield, to anticipate an opponent's move, and to master weapons like the lance, the sword, and the mace. The armor itself was a marvel of engineering. Early knights wore chainmail, but by the late Middle Ages, they were encased in full plate armor, a custom-fitted suit of steel that could weigh over 50 pounds. Getting into it was a process that required a squire's help. It was heavy, hot, and cumbersome, but in a world of sharp blades, it was the difference between life and death. Finally, after years of service and proving his mettle in battle, a squire could be knighted. This was the moment his whole life had been building towards. The ceremony, known as the accolade, could happen on the battlefield as a reward for bravery, or in a more formal setting at the castle. A lord would tap the squire on the shoulders with a sword and declare him a knight. From that moment on, he was no longer a boy in service but a warrior of noble standing, a defender of the realm, a legend in the making. But the story of the knight isn't just one of glory. It's also a story of change and, eventually, decline. The rise of new military technologies like the longbow and early firearms began to make the heavily armored knight less effective on the battlefield. An archer could take down a knight from a distance, piercing his expensive armor. As armies became larger and more professional, the role of the individual noble warrior began to fade. Yet, even as their military importance waned, the idea of the knight lived on. The code of honor, the tales of bravery, and the romantic image of the warrior in shining armor became embedded in our culture. They became symbols of an idealized past, representing courage, justice, and the eternal quest for a noble cause. They inspired some of the greatest stories ever told, from the legends of King Arthur and his Round Table to the fantastic worlds of modern fantasy. What about the knights who have been lost to time? History is written by the victors, and for every William Marshall, there were thousands of forgotten knights. Men who fought and fell on muddy battlefields, whose names were never recorded. There were also knights from different cultures, like the formidable Mamluk warriors of the Middle East or the disciplined samurai of Japan, who followed their own codes of honor. These forgotten warriors each have a story worth telling, reminding us that the spirit of the knight existed across the globe. So the next time you see a picture of a knight, remember the journey. Remember the page, the squire, the brutal training, and the unwavering code that guided them. The legacy of the knight isn't just in the castles and artifacts they left behind. It's in the enduring ideals of courage, honor, and the fight for something greater than oneself. They were more than just soldiers. They were the pillars of a bygone age, and their story continues to captivate and inspire us centuries later. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the world of medieval knights. If you enjoyed this glimpse into history, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you won't miss our next adventure into the past. Let me know in the comments which legendary knight is your favorite. Until next time, stay curious.